This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host Ivan, and each week I'll be chatting with some amazing hikers from across the United States and abroad. Spring has finally arrived in the Pacific Northwest, and soon I'll be hitting the trails to record short-form episodes with hikers I meet along the way. Look out for those episodes to drop sometime in June for Season 3. In the meantime, we'll be asking some of your favorite hikers about their experiences and adventures. We always finish the episode off with a round of this or that questions all related to hiking. We have two amazing guests on today's episode. We have best friends Julie and Sara on the podcast. You can follow their adventures on Instagram at Folklore Adventures. I had such a fun time chatting with both Julie and Sara on this episode. They've had some amazing adventures together, and they share with us not just the good, but also the not so good of hiking and backpacking. Best of all, they never let the challenging parts slow them down. We hear about how they got started hiking and backpacking together, their amazing trip to Patagonia, and a close call with a curious bear. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Julie and Sara. Welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really stoked to be talking with Julie and Sara today about their upcoming adventures and some of the great adventures that they've had across California, even down in South America. Julie and Sara, thank you for coming on the podcast. You know, we always like to start off by asking our guests how long they've been hiking for and how they kind of got started into hiking.
Well, thanks so much for having us. This is Julie, and gosh, for me, I feel like I've been hiking since I can remember. My family's a big hiking family, and I'm the youngest of three. So my family was taking me on crazy trails starting at a young age. Like I remember hiking up, they tried to get me to go on the 4-mile trail up Yosemite National Park. It was like a crazy trail, over 3,000 feet of elevation gain. And apparently I was a trooper until the end. And then I just wasn't having it and was like sitting in the middle of the trail. So it's just been a lifelong thing for me.
Similar. My family grew up hiking and camping and all that, but I really hated hiking when I was a kid. I would also sit down in the middle of the trail and just refuse to move. And my mom would be like, well, I can't just leave you. Like, you'll get eaten by a mountain lion. But yeah, and then I ran track and cross country in high school and college. And so that kind of took over my life, and, you know, hiking and traveling and stuff like that kind of wasn't on the agenda. But it really was when I moved to San Diego like 5 years ago or so. You know, being in a new place, you don't have friends yet. And so I would just go explore around and find different hiking trails. And that's kind of for me when it really became something that I love.
And you guys are both based out of Southern California. What's it like hiking in SoCal compared to Northern California where you guys have visited?
I'd say there's a lot more desert. There's not going to be the crazy, a lot of the mountain hikes and stuff like that the Sierras will provide. But we find our spots. And there's a lot of really pretty beach hikes, along the coast that you kind of get up in the cliffs with some really pretty views. There's also a fair amount of desert stuff, right? Which can have have some really cool caverns and, canyons and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more of that, I'd say. That's why we tend to drive up to Northern California to kind of get to the Sierras and stuff like that. It's just so beautiful there and not too far of a drive for us. So
yeah, I think the great thing about Southern California is that you kind of have everything pretty close. Like here, we're in San Diego, and so we had the mountains like an hour away. We got the desert an hour away. Beach is like, 10, 15 minutes. So there's a lot of diversity, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And from a previous guest, it seems like Southern California is almost like a great launching pad, not just for like California hikes, but Nevada, Arizona, Utah. It's within a day's drive. And, when we're recording this episode, it's the first week of spring, and California is known for their super spring blooms. Have you guys been able to check one of those blooms out? If not, do you have a favorite springtime hike that you've either done or you're looking forward to doing?
Done a couple other hikes. I mean, even just driving down the freeway, everywhere is green, lots of flowers. I did a pretty cool waterfall hike last weekend where there are a lot of flowers. So honestly, they're hard to miss.
And is the state the greenest you've seen it in a long time? Because some of the pictures and videos that I've seen of California, it's just super green everywhere.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah, it's gorgeous though. We have some kind of local parks, if you will, for hiking, and they're just so green, and most of the time they're pretty brown. So it's a gorgeous time to be hiking for sure. Love getting out of winter and into spring and hiking in the spring before it gets super hot in the summer. So
yeah, same here. I'm so looking forward to the springtime hikes. So we've gotten a chance to learn about how each of you individually have gotten into hiking. What's the origin story of Julie and Sara coming together and hiking and going on adventures?
So let's see. We've been friends for 2.5 years, like good friends for 2 years. We've known each other for probably almost 5. We met at church and we're kind of in the same friend group for a long time. There's actually an 8.5-year age difference between us. So we weren't like immediate, best friends or anything like that. But I think, we were friends. We were in the same friend group, but had never really hung out or spent much time together. And then about 2.5 years ago, Julie was in between jobs and was going to take this long 2-week road trip up to Washington, up the coast. And I was still in graduate school, so I was on a break. And all her friends and family were like, you should take someone with you. Like, you shouldn't go alone. So she asked me, and I was like, oh man, like, that sounds really fun, but I don't know this girl that well. Like, 2 weeks is a long time to be trapped in a car and a tent and hiking together and all that. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. Like, she seems cool and I'm always down for an adventure. And it was pretty much immediate. We just clicked, and had a lot of fun, even like the first couple days or so. And then we took that 2-week road trip, came back, and like 4 days later, we still had more time off. And we were like, we should go on another road trip. So we left and went up to the Tetons. And
yeah, I feel like we realized that we both travel really similarly and have kind of a similar approach to traveling, which is super helpful.
And, a follow-up question would be, who is the primary driver and who's the co-pilot?
Sara is the primary driver and I am the co-pilot for sure. We started off the first road trip we did in her car, and it's just kind of been that ever since. We take my car occasionally.
She's part of the trips, Barb,
Yeah. We've affectionately named her car Barb, and she's also part of the trips, and we feel like she would just, feel like she's missing out if she didn't come. So
plus Julie's like the planner and the one who like knows the directions. Like she's like the responsible
I'm looking up
one.
stuff.
So I'm like, okay, I'll drive because I hate that kind of stuff. And then she planned. So it kind of works out.
So did the love of Taylor Swift come through these road trips, or was that already something that you both enjoyed?
So that was independent. We both have a very deep love of Taylor Swift.
And then Folklore, our favorite album, came out like a few days before that road trip or something. So every single day of that trip, we listened to that album at least once a day, if not more.
Yes.
There was one day I think we listened to all the albums.
She is the soundtrack to our road trips.
100%.
Yeah, that's why our Instagram is Folklore Adventures, just because it feels like folklore, the defining soundtrack of our friendship.
Now, both of you have picked some amazing places, both stateside and abroad, to visit. When it comes to picking the destinations for your adventures, what is the selection process for each of you or together? And is there a bucket list that you reference to be like, oh, okay, maybe we should go here. This has been on the list for a while.
It's a little bit of both. I think we will sit down maybe twice a year and kind of try to plot out. So our goal is to go somewhere every month. And so we try to plot out our months and be like, where are we going this month? Where, what's going to be January, February, March, right? And we'll literally write up a note about this. And then it's a combination of what's on the bucket list, what's feasible, what's not, where do we want to take time off? Where's going to be just the weekend? Like a bucket list hike of mine was to hike Angel's Landing in Zion. And so we made that a priority a year ago. ago, I guess, year and a half maybe, where it was like, okay, we're going to go to Zion specifically to hike Angel's Landing. And then other times it's like, hey, we want to go backpacking. Let's figure out where to go. I think we end up defaulting to the Eastern Sierras a lot because there's just so much beauty there, and it's a pretty quick weekend. Like it's a good weekend spot for us. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. We try to be intentional.
To get to the Eastern Sierras, how long of a drive is that for you guys?
It's about 6 hours, so it's a little crazy to do on a weekend, but we have a system. Like I get off work at like 1 and she can work in the car, so we'll just leave in the afternoon and then get there in the evening, and it's not too bad. Most people would consider that not a weekend trip, but we don't mind driving and doing road trips and stuff. So
that's the thing about us is most people find us like psychotic. And just the fact that we take these trips, a lot, and we really do plan for it and make time for it. But that's because it's a priority for us. And so for us, it's worth it.
No, I think it's smart. If I have an early Friday, that's the same thing I do is I'll try to be ready. So as soon as I get off work, I'm going straight to where I need to be. And for folks that never visited or road tripped in California, it's a huge state. Both Washington and Oregon, you can probably go across the state in like 6 hours. But in California, you're only going maybe up to Central California, Northern California before you end the day. You guys mentioned the road trip to Washington. Is that the same trip where you guys were able to hit Mount Rainier and North Cascades National Park?
Yep.
And what are some of your individual highlights from that trip and visiting those national parks?
So that is the original, what we like to call the original road trip that we were sort of referencing. And that kind of came out of the pandemic as we talked about. I left one job and was about to start another one. And I wanted to do a big international trip, but then, with COVID, we couldn't travel. And so I thought, I guess I'll do a camping trip. And Sarah, joined me, which was amazing. So yeah, we were able to get all the way up to North Cascades, right up close to the Canadian border, which I mean, both parks are amazing. I fell in love with North Cascades. I just had never been up there. And we did Maple Pass, which at the time, as we've mentioned, I'm kind of the psycho planner, and I planned this trip kind of crazy. And I didn't know her. I didn't know how she'd feel about long hikes and stuff like that. So we laugh about it now because I nervously asked her, are you okay with like a 7 or 8 mile hike? It's up, it's supposed to be really pretty. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. Now we go on like crazy long hikes, and that's totally normal for us. But at the time I was just so nervous. But we got up to the top of Maple Pass, and it was just this like sea of mountains all around. And it was like, oh my goodness, we had just barely tapped the surface of this park, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And there was a ton of wildflowers. It was early August, so it was, beautiful wildflower season still. And it made me want to actually, on our bucket list, or what we hope to do this summer, is actually to get back up and backpack North Cascades National Park.
I really liked Mount Rainier. I think also that was one of like the first ones we went to. Mm-hmm. So that was probably part of it. But we did this, I mean, it wasn't like a crazy hike or anything, but this loop where you could just see a ton of wildflowers. And I think there's 50 to 100, maybe more different kinds of wildflowers. And you could just see, Mount Rainier the whole time. There was like these lakes. It was just like insane beauty. We rounded every corner and we were just like, oh my gosh.
We were like mad at how pretty it was. Yeah. It was like, this is so upsetting. Like, how can this exist?
Yeah, like, I will never see something this pretty ever again.
It's just, Mount Rainier is something else. It's so, I am jealous that you live so close, because it's just, the parks up there are so pretty. Oh my goodness.
I feel like North Cascades National Park is typically the neglected national park of Washington, because Mount Rainier gets the most visits, but then Olympic National Park, I feel is like the second destination. How did you guys discover North Cascades National Park and the Maple Loop Pass Trail?
My cycle planning. Once I had pinpointed the Pacific Northwest as the road trip, I was researching the different national parks up there, and North Cascades came up. And then from there, it was figuring out the top hikes. And it was Maple Pass. And there's one other hike, like main big hike up there, that we didn't get a chance to do. I had to decide between the two and chose Maple Pass. But again, there's so much up there. We are really excited to get back up there, because it feels like a bit untouched, and it does feel more remote and just a hidden gem. And we're all about nature with less people. So.
And when it came to going through Oregon, did you get a chance to hit up any spots there, or was Washington the main destination?
We did. We went through a couple of the river valleys there, which Sarah loved the numerous waterfalls that we saw.
I love waterfalls, but Julie made me see probably about 40 waterfalls within like 2 days. There came this point where I was like, I've seen them. Like, we're good.
There's just so many waterfalls in Oregon.
Oh, that is funny.
There was a point where we were off-roading in my Kia Forte to find these waterfalls. And I was like, I think we've seen enough, Julie.
At one point, towards the end, we got to the parking lot. She's like, "You can go. I'm not going to get out of the car."
That's true. I don't remember this. That might be true.
It's fun. We also did the Oregon coast, which the Oregon coast is unreal. There's really beautiful coastlines there as well.
Yeah,
so that was really fun.
Just driving along the coast is beautiful.
And how long was the trip again? The road trip?
A couple weeks. Yeah. So we kind of started, I think the first day we went to Lake Shasta and then made our way not up the coast, kind of up through the middle, and then came back around the coast. So
yeah,
it's kind of like a loop.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was great. And we loved it so much that, again, we turned around and then we went up to, we went over to the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone like that the next week.
And you guys saw within a month time some of the West Coast gems in both Rainier, North Cascades, and the Tetons.
And we went to Olympic. We went to Grand Canyon. We did a lot.
We did a lot. Yeah.
Can you recall off the top of your head how many national parks you hit up on that trip?
I mean, the first trip, national park, we did probably Mount Rainier, North Cascades, Olympic, and Crater Lake.
Crater Lake, yeah. So 4. And then the next one, I think we did 4 as well.
Yeah, we did do 4.
Yes, we did.
Wow. That is awesome. Well, outside of national parks, I think one of the other popular things that comes up on your feed is the Eastern Sierras that you've been able to hike to and camp at some beautiful alpine lakes. Is there a visit in 2022 to a specific lake that kind of stands out for each of you? And if it does, what about it kind of stands out?
Yeah, so we did one up to, I think it's Treasure Lake. That was really cool. It didn't end up being backpacking. So, so we backpacked to the lake and it was maybe like 3 miles. It wasn't crazy, but we were kind of dumb and we didn't bring bug spray. And so we got there and the bugs were just all over us. And I was kind of like, this is going to be miserable. And so I was like, it's worth it to me to hike back to the car. It was like 10 a.m. It was still early. So I was like, I'll hike back to the car and get some bug spray and, hike back. We'll still have plenty of time. So I did that and I get back to the lake and I think I was there for maybe an hour. So there's a little bit of time. And then the storm rolls in and we realized that we did not bring the rain fly
to our tent,
which we had already stupidly set up. This was one of our first backpacking trips.
a lot of rookie mistakes here.
A lot of mistakes. So our tent is set up and the rain comes and then our tent gets soaked.
And all our sleeping bag, like all the sleeping stuff that we've set up. Because we were diligent.
So then the rain passed, but we were like, well, all of our stuff is soaked. So then we ended up just hiking back. And so I ended up hiking that trail twice in one day. It was like, what should have been like a 6 mile or a 3 mile day turned into a 12-mile day. But it was beautiful. Like, that's one that I would love to go back to and actually camp at because, like, there weren't many people. We maybe saw one other person. And just like snow-capped mountain, beautiful glacial lake, and it was really cool.
Yeah. What stands out is Lamarck Lakes. I think we actually camped up the upper Lamarck Lakes, and it was just, a beautiful trail. You get up to the lake and you can set up your tent like right by it, and we just, beautiful sunset, and we woke up, watched the sunrise on the, reflecting off the mountains, and it was just really gorgeous and peaceful. This time we were better prepared for rain, and so, we did get rain on, so we were sitting in the tent for a little while, just like, okay, we're chilling in here, but the rainstorm passed, and you just kind of have to be ready for, some rain, but it kept people away. I feel like there was maybe one other group there, and that's the thing that is so great about backpacking is you just get completely away and you're just completely immersed in nature. So.
And did you guys, when you were in the tent waiting for the rain to pass, did you kind of look at each other reminiscing about the last time forgetting the rain fly?
Yep. Yeah. We were like, look at us go. But then we were kind of on like this weird hill thing. And so rain started like pooling under the tent.
Yes.
And the bottom started getting wet, which turned out to be fine. It didn't get too bad.
Yeah.
But then we were like, we should maybe get like a footprint. Like, I feel like every backpacking trip we've done, we're like, we need more things.
Yeah, we learn as we go.
You've done a lot of amazing hikes here stateside, but you've also done a lot of amazing hikes abroad. And one that really caught my attention was your trip to Taiwan, where you were able to hike, I think it was a trail called Three Peaks. How was that experience? And how was that trail? Because that ladder system looked a little, not sketchy, but a little concerning to be able to hike up on that. Yeah.
So that was actually a solo trip that I did. And I was able to get out to Taiwan, which is such a beautiful country and has amazing hiking. And the Three Peak Trail specifically was absolutely epic. It's interesting, in Taiwan, they have very different trails, I'd say, than in the US, in that there's no switchbacks. You're walking up a lot of steps in order to get up a mountain. And especially on the Three Peak Trail, you're walking like right on the side of the cliffs and you could fall and just plunge to very, very far down. One of the peaks is especially treacherous, and it looks makeshift and you're kind of hesitant to trust whether to go up on it, but it's so worth it. It was so fun. It was really cool to hike out there. Sweeping, beautiful valleys and just green everywhere. The people in Taiwan are so nice. I also did Turoku National Park there, which the pictures don't do it justice. It is this gorgeous, gorgeous, like huge cliff walls. And I did this one amazing hike that was the trail of like 10 waterfalls or something. And you go through
waterfalls.
I know. You go, Sarah's favorite. You go through like this various caves and then waterfalls like pop up everywhere. And the very end is this cave in which water is pouring in and you're literally walking like in a waterfall. It was so cool. And I was about to like start hiking in, and this local stopped me and was like, pointed at my feet and was like very dramatically like, no, you need to take those off. And I looked around and was like, oh, everyone is taking their shoes off because you're just like kind of wading through water and like you get soaked, but it's so worth it. So Taiwan, is gorgeous. So much hiking.
You know, the following pictures, like shortly after that you posted, was also of a visit to Thailand. Was that within the same trip?
No, that was actually a trip that I took. I'm a physical therapist, and that was actually a medical trip I took when I was in school, but I traveled kind of before and after.
From there, you were able to visit not just like the northern mountainous region, but also down south and the island chains that they have. Is there an experience or a memorable hike that you did?
Yeah, I mean, Thailand is so cool because it's so diverse. Like the northern end is way more mountainous, and then the southern end you have more of like the tropical stuff. So I thought that was really cool, just like the diversity and the different experiences I was able to have. And everything is so cheap, which is great. So when I was in the islands, I did like this all-day boat tour. I think it ended up being like $20 American or something. But we went to like a monkey island and saw monkeys, and we got to go snorkeling and go around to all these different islands. We ended in like this bioluminescence field or something, which was really cool. So that was just really cool because it was kind of different stuff than my typical thing. And then there was this really cool hike. Oh, I wish I could remember the region. When I was doing the medical portion, that was in a region called Sinclaberry. And there was kind of this really cool, you kind of start at the top and just walk down. But there's like all these pools. There's, I think, maybe like 10 pools or something like that, and all these waterfalls. And the pools are kind of like this bright turquoise blue. And so that was really cool. You kind of just stop along the way and like dip into each one. Try not to let your stuff get stolen by the monkeys. But yeah.
And you have a really great shot of one of the monkeys. I think he's on top of your kayak.
Yeah.
Did you just go up to the beach and like they were just hanging out at the beach and one just happened to hop on?
Yeah, I mean, you just like beach your kayak and walk up on this island and they're like all over. So yeah, that one just like parked himself on the kayak, and then there are a couple other little baby ones up in the trees. And you try not to get too close because you don't want to like disturb them, and they can get vicious too.
Did they try to snatch any of your gear from the kayak?
Actually, no, they were pretty good with that. Yeah, that Monkey Island wasn't too bad, but the waterfall hike we did, I remember swimming in one of the pools and I was looking over and there's this man sitting there, and a monkey literally came down from the tree and tried to steal his hat off his head. Like,
oh my gosh.
They'll just, they're so bold. It's creepy in a way, but they're cute.
Now, the big trip that I wanted to talk to you about, just because the pictures are unbelievable, but I know they still don't do it justice, and that's your guys' trip to Patagonia.
Yeah.
I think you guys did 50 miles in 4 days.
Ooh, that sounds right.
Yeah. Maybe slightly less.
Sounds rough. I don't know.
I tried not to count.
I know we could probably do an episode alone just on Patagonia, but can you take our listeners through this trip, and maybe each of you can kind of take a day and how that experience was between day 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Sure, I'll start with day 1. We were doing the W Trek, which is in Torres del Paine National Park, and gorgeous park. It's meant to be a maybe 5-day trek that psycho planner Julie thought was a great idea to do in 4. We get on the bus, the early morning bus. We're good. We get in line like just shy of getting on the first ferry. You have to take a ferry. In addition to a bus, then you have to also take a ferry in order to get to the start of this trek. That's like how remote it is, which is so amazing and epic. But we missed the first ferry, so we had to wait around, which meant that we got to the start of the trail later than we were hoping, and they closed the trail down. So we have the genius idea that we will run the first day in order to get to this glacier. That's the first day is up and back to this glacier.
Yeah, we're only here once. They closed the trail at 3. We're just gonna do it.
Yeah, we just have to. We'll just get it done. We did. We ran the trail and we got to the glacier. It was absolutely gorgeous, absolutely epic. And then we get back, and the first night is gorgeous. A lot of wind, I will say. A lot of wind in Patagonia, but we had beautiful weather too. So the first day we were feeling great. We're like, look at us go. We got it done, but we would soon come to pay for that.
Yeah. Which takes us to day 2.
Day 2 was not a good day.
Day 2 was probably the most I've hated and loved to hike at the same time. Yeah. So day 2 it was like a combination of backpacking and hiking. It was a long day. We backpacked in a little while and then dropped our packs and went up into what they call the French Valley, where there's like this amazing mountain, and that was insane. We have pictures of that on our Instagram, but just like watching avalanches down this mountain, there's like a waterfall. It was like insane. We hiked back out of that, and then the last portion is backpacking. And so we're like backpacking along, and there's like kind of a split in the trail, and we're like, okay, we think it's this way because that's what the sign says. And we're walking, we're like, this trail's really overgrown. Like, this maybe isn't right. But Julie's like looking on the map, and she's like, I think it's right. And we're like, okay.
AllTrails did us dirty.
AllTrails did us real dirty. Yeah. So we come up to this like rushing river.
Huge river.
Rushing river. And there's like this dilapidated bridge. And we're like, we can see the camp, like where we're supposed to get to, right on the other side of the river. But this bridge is like not passable. Like at first we're like, maybe. And then we're like, no, we will die. Like,
Truly.
This is not a good idea. And then Julie's like walking up and down the river. She's like, I mean, there's rocks up there, but I don't know. I'm like, I don't think so, Julie. And I'm usually kind of the psycho one. So when I'm saying I don't think it's safe, so we finally we stand there just looking in sadness at this river for a really long time.
And then we realize we have to backtrack.
We have to backtrack. So then we backtrack, we find the right trail, and we hit this sign that says, I think it was like 2.5 kilometers away was like our next camp for the night. So we're like, okay, 2.5K, that's nothing. We got this. We're feeling okay. So we're backpacking and we're walking and we're walking and we're walking. We hit 2.5K. We're still walking. And at this point, like my feet were, I think both of us were just dying because we had ran the day before. Then we hiked more than we should have. And now we thought we were going to be at our destination, but we're not there yet. And so I think it ended up being like maybe a 5K to like, you know, double what we thought. And we get to the camp and we drop our stuff and I sit down and I literally was like tearing up.
You fell.
I'm getting there. So I'm like tearing up.
Oh yeah. Okay,
yeah. So Julie goes in to like talk to the camp host to like get our site or whatever. And he comes back out and he's like, here, I'll show you where your campsite is. And he picks up Julie's pack and starts walking up this mountain. And I'm like looking at my pack and I'm like, do I really have to put this back on right now? Like, I want to cry. And so I put my pack back on. It wasn't that far of a walk, but it felt like a million miles. And then, yeah, I slipped and fell into a bush. And I was like, this is the lowest I felt.
But at least that was the most epic camp site
really
that we had. We
Yeah.
had this sweeping view of lake and mountains, and it was just gorgeous. It was unreal, but
Yeah.
it was a rough day.
So it was worth it, and it's hilarious now. But I had a moment.
Yeah. Day 3. So the first couple days we had wonderful weather, bright, sunny. Day 3 was rain, which we were kind of prepared for. That's, you know, they kind of tell you in Patagonia, it's crazy weather, but it wasn't bad rain. I'd say, you know, that part of the hike was really pretty. The biggest obstacle that day for us was that there was this, well, now kind of rushing river through the trail because of the rain that had been going on since the morning. And so it was kind of like, well, we have to cross this. What are we going to do? You know? And so we kind of just took our shoes off, tied them to our waist, and trekked on through and hoped we didn't tip over with all our stuff into this rushing river. So it worked out and we got to our campsite, which was, the final campground. Which the cool thing about the W Trek is it feels like this backpackers kind of paradise or like summer camp for backpackers, because each night you stay at these communal campgrounds and you're all kind of getting together at these refugios, cooking your dinner and all of that. And so you start to see the same people. So it's really fun. You kind of forge relationships along the trail with all these different people and are able to kind of swap stories and all of that. So it's always a fun to get there at the night portion and hear other people's adventures of the day.
And that was day 3.
Yep.
Day 4
wow.
is set. I can't even discuss day 4.
Day 4. Julie had her hardest day on day 4.
That was my low point.
So you can do the W Trek either, like you can start from either point. And so we decided to finish up with like one of the most famous things that you'll see in all the pictures, which is like the towers. That's the technical name, right? Yeah. The tourist still name, you know, what the park is named after. We hiked that day. It wasn't like a backpacking thing because we started from the bottom. Yeah. So we get most of the way up this trail. And so we started and you couldn't see the towers. It was cloudy. But we were like, okay, it's like a long hike and we have time. It's morning. Like maybe the clouds will pass. But as we keep hiking and hiking, it's just getting cloudier and cloudier. And by the time we were almost to the end, it was starting to snow pretty bad. And it was getting a little bit treacherous. So we made the decision, like you could not see the towers at all. And so we were like, okay, I guess, you know, we're not going to see them. It's kind of treacherous. Like we might as well turn around. So we turned around and Julie was really disappointed. And then we get to the spot where we get some lunch in the clouds. Like at this point, we're like almost all the way back and the clouds like part and clear. And you can like see the towers in the distance, but obviously it's not the same as like being right there. And Julie started crying.
It was an emotional trip. Yes, the end of a very long 4 days. And yes, I will say I did cry. I did cry when I saw that we made it all the way up there. And if we had just gone like an hour or 2 later, we would have gotten there. But timing wise, we had to get back in order to catch this bus. So like it was just this not meant to be situation. And it was very upsetting.
It was.
But you cried later. Did I? Oh, I did. It was a trying backpacking experience for us. But, you know, it was absolutely worth it. you learn a lot on the trail. And it was one of those experiences that like you kind of both love and hate it on the way, but looking back, it was so fun.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like an adventure that you will never forget. I feel like you learned so much throughout this trip. For those,
Oh yeah, a lot of mistakes were made.
For those, because I feel like Patagonia is like on every hiker's bucket list. Is there any tips or advice that you would give hikers that are interested in going down there that maybe they don't consider, or it's something that might not be in the forefront of their research?
I would say if you can account for weather, right? Add an extra day if you really want to make sure you see something, add the extra day. We had a couple of times where, weather almost, in this instance, keep us from seeing one of the epic scenes. We also hiked up Mount Fitzroy, like to see the Fitzroy. And thankfully, on the very last day we were there, the skies cleared, but it was pretty cloudy most of the time. So I would say if there's something that you really want to see and you can add the extra day there, just add the extra day in case, weather goes awry.
One thing that I feel in this episode that's come about, and I think a lot of hikers, especially when it comes to AllTrails, we've all been done dirty by AllTrails, and they tell you so many miles, but it's not the truth. I think it's a part of hiking and backpacking and adventures that sometimes things don't go according to plan. And for some, it could ruin their experience or sour their experience. But both of you, what I really enjoyed about your content is like you have made the best out of those situations and you have a fun time doing them. What's one memorable incident for each of you where you made the best out of a situation that wasn't necessarily ideal?
Yeah, we have a lot of those. My goodness. Something that comes to mind is, part of our kind of late night, Friday night drives, we were driving to Sequoia National Park and we're going to do kind of dispersed camping in there. And so it's probably midnight. And we get to the front of the park and we're following Google Maps and it tells us to turn off. And so we start turning off. It proceeds to get like more and more off-roading to the point where her poor little Kia Forte car is just barely making it up this road. And it is pitch black. And all of a sudden there's like this huge cow in the middle of the road that we have to like wait for it to pass by. And we keep going. And then all of a sudden the road just stops. And it is very clear that we're not going to be able to make it through. So we then have to, at like 1 a.m., drive all the way back down off this like crazy treacherous trail, only to find out there's this big sign that you can't see in the dark, but it's like, don't trust Google Maps. It literally said something like that. Like, don't follow Google Maps. Don't go this way. And we just missed the sign because it was dark. And so it's like 2 a.m. And, it was one of those moments where it's like, we could either be really upset and complain about this, or we could choose to laugh and choose to be like, play would you rather, like in the car, and that's what I appreciate about Sarah is I think both of us have this mentality of like, we're going to choose to laugh when bad things happen. And so that was definitely one of those, roll into camp at 2 a.m. and set up your tent and just call it a night.
For me, I mean, like Julie said, there's so many. We've had a lot of car issues. One of the funniest / craziest weekends was this one weekend we were trying to backpack in the Eastern Sierras or whatever. But it was raining up in the mountains. So we were like, okay, we probably shouldn't backpack up there because it was supposed to just rain the whole time. The base camp was kind of out of like Mammoth Bishop area. So we were like, all right, we can still salvage the weekend and have like a good weekend in Mammoth. So we went to a lake that day and it was like at a campground and we were both I had my hammock with me. So I was like, okay, I want to find like some good trees to set up my hammock. So I walked down the trail kind of like far from people. And I'm like sitting there just like reading a book. All of a sudden I hear like footsteps behind me and I turn and there's a bear like right behind me. And it was so close that I was like, if I try to get out of my hammock, because I don't know if you've ever been in one of those, but they're not easy to get out of. I was like, this bear is going to come at me. So I was like, I'm just going to sit here and hope it like, just wanders by and doesn't notice I'm here. So I just kind of freeze and I'm facing the lake. And all of a sudden I feel its nose running up my back. And then I feel it on the side of my face and it's sniffing my face. It kind of like put its head on my hammock for a minute. Like this was going on for like 5 minutes. And I was like contemplating my entire life. It was so scary. I was like, oh my gosh. And so eventually it did wander away. Like I just froze and I started like shaking at one point, but I was like, don't move, don't breathe, don't do anything. And then he did kind of wander away and then he was kind of headed towards Julie. So I jumped up and I kind of started running that way, like around the bear. You know, I gave it like a lot of girth, but then she has her headphones in and this bear is coming towards her and I'm screaming at her and she can't hear me. It was so stressful, but she did eventually hear me and move and everything. But that was just like a crazy weekend because we had the weather mishaps and then this bear like almost ate me. Not really, but kind of.
I mean, kind of. It was in your face.
It could have been real bad. Like I almost had food on me and I like left it in the car. You know, like so many things could have gone wrong. But I think that night we just like went into Mammoth and like went to a brewery and like got fondue and it like ended up being really fun. But it was just kind of a random like weekend with all these mishaps.
Oh my goodness. And credit to you both because I think that's what makes you such a great pair when it comes to road tripping is you kind of help one another elevate out of those sticky situations. And that's really great to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think it definitely helps to travel with someone who can just laugh at things and have the same perspective of like, okay, we're not going to die. It's not the end of the world. Like it's not ideal, but this will be a funny story one day. And let's just...
That's how we operate.
Yeah.
Because the story that caught my attention was, I'm blanking on where you were, maybe Zion, where you accidentally booked the wrong number of days for the campsite.
Yeah.
And that's where I think I was first introduced to the onesie collection. And I think you busted out a cow onesie and were out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fair. That was on me. I was so excited. I'm like, I have campground reservations in Zion National Park. This is going to be great. This was the Angel's Landing, you know, when we were going to go hike Angel's Landing. And so we roll in at like 2 a.m. So we wake up, you know, leisurely in the morning and we're like, we'll take an easy morning and we're off, you know. And all of a sudden it's like the ranger is coming to the campground like, hey, you need to be out. Why aren't you out? We have to mad dash, take down the tent, pack everything up, throw it in the car, and then try to figure out how are we going to salvage this trip because we were planning on hiking Angel's Landing on the Sunday. And so we're just furiously trying to figure out where on earth we can stay. And we find this random like person's property who's renting out like space to camp. And so we're like, great. And we roll into it. It's just like a huge field
of cows.
With cows. Yeah. It's just, then you just set up camp there. But I mean, unreal, like absolutely gorgeous. Of course, the minute she saw cows, Sarah, you know, has her cow onesie in the car.
Of course. You never know when you're going to need it. And I think this just proved my point.
Prove that. Yes. Had to put it on and go run with them.
I had to go make some friends.
It was definitely memorable.
That is so. Is that the onesie that's always in your car? Is the cow onesie?
Yeah, and I have like a ram, and then I have Eeyore, which was like a group costume thing. But yeah, the cow's definitely my favorite. And yeah, generally it's you never know.
When it comes to hiking and backpacking, not everybody, but I feel like some people have a summit ritual, or maybe it's the end of the hike routine once they get out, or maybe once they set up camp. It could be a favorite snack, meal, some sort of drink, or even just a moment of zen. Does each of you have a regular custom that you do when you reach your destination, or maybe when you make it back out?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have like our traditional things. Like when we road trip, Friday night when we leave, we always get Chick-fil-A. That's like, true. We have like our order ready in the app and everything. It's pretty sad. And then, yeah, I'd say on the way back or like after, you know, we get back from our destination or whatever, it's California burritos, which are kind of only a thing here in San Diego. Yeah. Come to find out. But yeah, they're really good. They have like French fries in them. It's really not Mexican food at all.
It's one of our favorites. One of the best things you will ever eat.
They're so good. Yeah. So we'll get that. And then we also love like a hazy IPA. So that's also, if we're able to. something we'll finish off with.
And I feel like at the top, weirdly, starting from our first road trip together, got really excited about fruit snacks.
We really did.
Yes. So, love a good fruit snack at the top of a mountain.
Yeah, or like a cold brew coffee.
Yeah.
We'll hike with cold brew sometimes. A little pick-me-up before you head back down.
Is there a particular flavor of fruit snacks that is your favorite?
Ooh, so hot take.
Oh.
We have different brands we like. I love the Welch's.
I like the Mott's because they're animal-shaped and they're fun. But Julie bought like a 200 pack of Welch's, so it took us a while to get through.
I like to buy in bulk. It's cheaper.
I feel like it's the Heinz versus the Hunt's ketchup debate, but that's funny. So when it comes to your guys' pack list, what do each of you consider your most valuable piece of gear when it comes to your pack list?
So for backpacking, a game changer has been Sarah, for my birthday, got us backpacking chairs, which I know for the minimalist backpackers, it adds extra weight, but for us, it's totally worth it to be able to set up these backpacking chairs and have a place to sit throughout your time at the lake or wherever it is you are. It's just been completely changed our backpacking game.
Yeah, and besides packing a couple, hazy IPAs, I would say I like to bring my hammock a lot because it's a good place to sit and just kind of hang out. Like a lot of times when you backpack, you get to like the lake or wherever your final destination is, like by midday or whatever, and then there's not like a ton to do at that point. So I like to bring my hammock and just kind of hang out, literally, and look at the view. Maybe bring a book or something.
I like those two. Right on. A lot of people, especially coming out of 2020, have really gotten a love and joy for the outdoors. Now that it's springtime and especially in California with all the rain and snow that you've had over the last couple of weeks and months, for those that are interested in getting out there into the outdoors and getting into hiking or backpacking, what advice would you give first-timers so they have a safe and rewarding experience out on the trails?
Well, one thing we did is the first time we went backpacking, we went with one of our friends who was like a very experienced backpacker. And I think that was really helpful because both of us were wanting to get into backpacking, but like it seemed a lot more intimidating and scary than it turned out to be, just in terms of like what gear you'd need, how the permit system works and all that. So I think after that trip with him, it was really like, oh, okay, we can do this. This isn't that hard. But yeah, that was kind of huge for us. Otherwise, we maybe would have been too afraid to try.
And I would say, even though AllTrails can do you dirty, it is very pivotal. I highly recommend, if you're going to get into hiking, to get the pro version where you can download the trails when you don't have service, because we once got lost in the desert when we could not download the trail, and
a 6-mile hike turned into a 17-mile hike.
Yeah, and we were seriously worried that we were going to have to like spend the night in the desert. Like truly, both of us in our brains, we were like to each other trying to not freak out. Like, it's going to be fine. But we were legit lost.
We were like scoping out caves that would be good to sleep in.
Yeah. And both of us individuals were like, how much food do we have? How much water do we have? We need to start conserving. What can we do to try to alert authorities? Like truly, like, you know what I mean? So lesson learned. Download the app or download the trail before you go. It's always good to be able to check back on the map and see where you are. Are you on the right trail and all that? So.
Oh, no. Yeah, solid tip. Now, I got to ask, how'd you make it out?
I mean, I don't know.
We
were in this wash and the wash kept going for forever and it would like go off in different directions. So we had to kind of try to follow our footprints. But we then were like studying our own footprints. Like, what do our footprints look like compared to other people's? And it could have been bad.
It could have been really like the sun was setting as we made it out. So like if we had taken any longer, it would have been dark. And that would have been much harder.
It was a little scary.
Yeah. But funny. I think I did fall on that one too at the very end.
That's right.
I slipped and fell. And I was like, of course.
It was a long day. It was a long day.
Because you said it was supposed to be 6 miles and it turned to 17?
It was this like 6-mile loop that was supposed to be super cool. And you're supposed to like go down this like slot canyon and then see these dome cave things. Mm-hmm. We didn't see any of that. We were just like in this walk for forever. It was awful.
That's the hard thing thing about the desert is the trail, it's hard to make a very clear trail because it's just sand. So like we thought that this wash was like a trail, which I think was our downfall.
So that brings me to my last question is, now that spring has arrived and the snow's slowly starting to melt, what's on the horizon for both Julie and Sarah for their upcoming spring trips and the rest of the year and maybe 2024 and beyond?
Well, we have a half marathon in May in Yosemite, so we're going to do that. My parents actually live up near Yosemite, so that's an easy one for us to just pop up to. So I think we may go in a few weeks here and do that. We got Sequoia, North Cascades this summer.
Yeah, backpacking trips in Eastern Sierras over the summer. We like to do that. What else do we have planned?
I'm trying to remember. Nothing big.
Yeah, no international trips probably this year.
I'm going to head up to Colorado at some point.
That's right.
I have a brother that lives over there. So a lot together, a couple things. Like Julie's going to Mammoth with her family.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a blast, Julie and Sarah, to talk to you. And this next little section of the podcast is the this or that questions, all hiking related. And since we have two guests, we'll start off with Julie first, and then we'll go through the 10 questions. And then we'll switch to Sarah, and we'll see if there's any matching or ones that there's a Mott's versus Welch's situation.
This may ruin our friendship, but here we go.
All right, here we go. So the first question is ascending or descending?
Descending.
Waterfalls or summit?
Ooh. Okay, this is hard for me. I love me a waterfall, but I know. But I have to say summit.
Okay. And switchbacks or straight up?
Switchbacks. Oh my gosh, like I said, like in Taiwan, they didn't do any switchbacks and it was rough. So I love a good switchback.
You're always complaining on the switchbacks.
Well, it's still rough.
And how about trek poles or freehand?
I hate trek poles. Hate them. Freehand all the way.
And do you fuel up before a hike or do you fill up after?
After.
Do you bushwhack or go around?
Ooh, okay. I mean both, honestly, but depends. Like, if it's easy to go around, go around. But if you're going to have to add on a lot of mileage, then let's bushwhack. Let's go.
And how about, do you jump in or do you stay dry?
Oh, I know what Sarah is. Depends on the day. I'd like to think I'm a jump in, but
she's not.
But sometimes I'm a stay dry.
Most of the time. Yeah. I'll answer that one for you.
And then the next one is sunsets or sunrises?
I'm going to go sunrise, even though I'm West Coast, love a sunset, but I love a sunrise.
And how about spring flowers or fall colors?
Spring flowers.
And last one, do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike?
I'm not a tagger, so I'm going to say not tag. It's not a thing for me.
Awesome, awesome. Sarah, you're up. So we'll go back to the first question. Ascending or descending?
I mean, descending. Does anyone ever choose ascending? I feel like that's a trick question.
I want to say, I need to go back, but I think I finally had somebody recently say ascending, which I was shocked.
It must have been like an ultra marathon. That's just...
The $1 million question, waterfalls or summits?
Oof.
Oh, I mean, that's a tough one. No, definitely summit for me. I mean, I don't hate waterfalls, but yeah, definitely summit.
Switchbacks or straight up?
Switchbacks, yeah.
And trek poles or freehand?
Oh, freehand for sure, yeah. They just get in the way.
Do you fuel up before a hike or do you fill up after?
Definitely after.
And do you bushwhack or go around?
I mean, also depends. Yeah, I think it depends on how much bushwhacking is involved. Because one time we tried to do that, and I almost lost all of my hair. So like, my hair was like stuck in these branches, and I was like, this was not worth it. But yeah.
And do you jump in or do you stay dry?
Oh, I'm definitely a jump in type person.
Is.
Yeah.
She jumps in every
Unless it's cold, I'm like, yes, I'm going to swim in this lake, because when else will I be able to do this?
And how about sunsets or sunrises?
I mean, both. So I like sunrises when Julie makes me wake up for them. It's always worth it. I hate mornings though. So like I'm usually, in my personal life, I'm a sunset person.
That's true.
When we travel, we're more sunrise.
Yeah. No one's out. It's just so pretty. Sunrise,
it is nice.
There's just something really special about a morning.
Yeah.
Quiet morning and you watch the sunrise. It's just so nice.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty insane sunrises, so I'll go with sunrise.
For spring flowers or fall colors, which one do you prefer?
Oh, spring flowers for sure. We'll be driving and I'll just be like, oh my gosh, there's flowers.
She loves.
I love
to
flowers.
feel the flowers.
I really do.
And then last one for you. Do you tag a hike or do you not tag a hike?
So I think it depends. If it's like a really popular hike, then it's like, sure, I'll tag it. But if it's like one of those hidden gems, then sometimes I'm selfish and I'm like, I don't want everyone to know about this, so I'm not going to tag it. I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair. Really appreciate you answering the this or that questions. Now, for listeners that haven't had a chance to follow you on social media, where's the best place they can find you and follow you to see your upcoming adventures?
So we're at Folklore Adventures on Instagram, and that's it. Yeah.
That's our spot. Yeah, so follow us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie and Sarah, for coming on the podcast. Had a really great time chatting with you and hearing about your adventures. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us. This was so fun.
Thank you once again to both Julie and Sarah for joining us on this episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. Be sure to follow them on Instagram at Folklore Adventures to keep up with their latest hikes and backpacking trips. We'll be putting out new episodes every week throughout the spring. Please be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on those. Also, follow us on Instagram at Hikes and Mikes. Catch you on the next one. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of Flip Socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.